Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the, what month is this? September 2010 Watercooler, which is our name for our virtual user group for Tabs 3 and Practice Master users. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and I'm here to talk to you today about document management and how it's done in Practice Master, or what your options are. And before I do that, Mary Jo is going to talk about being out of balance in a variety of different ways that you can get out of balance in the general ledger or in the accounting programs that accompany tabs. But before we do that, I'm going to do the housekeeping section where we talk about what this little box is that's over on the right that you have on your screen. For those of you who are new, this box simply controls GoToWebinar, which is what we use to perform these feats of comic genius. And this is the control panel for GoToWebinar. There's some buttons that jut off in a box that juts off from the left of the big box. And those buttons do a couple things. One raises your hand, and one slides the big box out of the way. So if you can't see my screen, then it is probably, or part of it I should say, then it's probably because this big box is covering it up. And if you click on this button that looks like arrows pointing to the right, the big box will go away. Once the big box goes away, the buttons that looks like arrows pointing to the right will turn into a button that looks like arrows pointing to the left. And if you click it then, the big box will come back. Why would you want the big box to come back? Why? Because you're shy, of course, and want to type a question here in the questions part. Now, if you're not shy, you merely press this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow in front of it that points up, which is, wait for it, raising your hand. So if you raise your hand, we will notice, and we will unmute you. You can ask your question. We'll make sure that we answer it to your satisfaction, or at least as completely as we can. And then we'll mute you again so that you can continue eating your Fritos, Doritos, or crunchy potato chips. If instead you're shy, type your question here. We'll still get it. You just won't get to talk. So without any further ado, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to pull up the general ledger. And I'm going to give keyboard and mouse to Mary Jo because she always complains that I forget to do that. And I'm going to introduce Mary Jo, who's going to talk about being out of balance.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to touch base here as we get kind of closer to the end of the year and doing all of our end of the year balancing and all of that. A couple of things to be aware of. A lot of times we'll get messages as users that we don't understand or we don't know what to do with, so we just kind of skip over them and just continue and not worry about it. But then as things keep going, especially in our financials, if those things are those error messages are out of balance messages, they can just tend to build up, and eventually you're going to have to resolve those. And it's usually at the end of the year that everybody finds these and says, oh my gosh, it doesn't balance, what do I do? So a couple of things that you should be doing every month is running your general ledger report, your trial balance report, your balance sheet, your income statements, all those things for your accountant or for your internal use. A lot of times when we run the trial balance, there may be, it may be out of balance. And what that looks like is, if I go ahead and run this trial balance, I've actually created an entry to force this to be out of balance. So if I come in here and I just run it, and of course our software, this is a trial, thanks for November of 2009. But if I preview this trial balance, at the bottom of my page here, it will say my debits and credits do not balance, and it's off $1,000. Now I've purposely, like I said, I've put an entry in here to force it to be that so you can see what this message looks like. But if you're getting this message, it's not something to just go ahead and just print it and just keep going on. You should go back and find out why that's out of balance. One of the main reasons that I see, or one of the main reasons or ways to prevent that from happening is to make sure that you've got your settings set up properly. If we go to utilities and maintenance and we go under our GLS client, there's a box here that says force journal entries to balance. You should have that box checked. That forces the user when they're making a journal entry to not be able to get out of that journal entry until that particular entry balances. And we want to make sure that that balances before we're out. That does not prevent you from getting out of balance in a journal entry, because although this will prevent it at the initial original journal entry, it will not, if you come back into that journal entry to change it, you could then actually save an unbalanced entry the second time after one's saved after the original entry. So you have to be careful with that. It will prevent you from getting out of the screen when you first make the entry, but if you go back to modify that, it will allow modifications that are out of balance, and it will allow you to get out. So this is the first step in trying to prevent it. It's not going to prevent everything, but it's going to help. So I would recommend that you go in under GLS Edit Client, force the journal entries to balance. If you do get this message, I'm going to go ahead and save that. If you do get that message on our trial balance, what I usually do is I'll try to go back and find out when it happened. If you haven't been running these trial balances or general ledger reports every month, it could have happened back in May, or it could have happened in June, or who knows when. So the first thing I do is I just go back and I start running the monthly trial balances, and I'll just take it back to January 1 through January 31st and run the report. If it comes back and there's no message there, I know January was okay. I can run February, March, until I narrow it down to the month that it came out of balance. Because if you don't go back, it's going to just continue to carry and carry. So now if the error was in May, my June, my July, all the way through the month that I'm in is going to be off. And so we want to go back and find the original month that it happened in. Once we do that, then we can review our journal report, or we can review the trial balance, kind of go back up and try to find where that balance error occurred. Now in my case, when I did my trial balance, I purposely put in a one-sided entry that was $1,000 in my operating account. And so to go back and find that, I may have to do a general ledger report. I may have, there's a lot of ways that we, may have to go back and try to find where it went wrong, but that's the first step, is to kind of, realize that you have an error and realize that you need to go back and find when it happened, and then go further and try to find out where it is and then to fix it. Once you've corrected that entry, you rerun the trial balance, and then it should come out and there should be no errors there. Same thing with the general ledger. Right now it's still off balance, and it's going to also say for that $1,000. So if I come back down, I'm going to go to the bottom of there. Again, it's going to be the same message. My debits and credits do not balance. I can see that it's off. I've got $1,000 more on my debit side than I do here. And you can see right here I've got it. It's a test unbalanced entry. And you can see that I've got $1,000 here, but if I were to scroll down, there's no other side to this. And if I open this entry, you'll see that it's just a one-sided entry. Even here when I'm making my journal entry, it will tell me if I'm in balance. And right now I've got debits of 1,000, credits of 0, and I'm off $1,000. So this is where you would start to go back through and try to find where that is, and then you would correct it either by taking this out or adding the other side of the entry. Something else that can throw that off is if you go back and you change dates on an entry. Maybe one side of the entry is 11/1, but the other side is 12/1, so it's in 2 different months. So, maybe my November is going to be off $1,000 and my December is off $1,000, but in the end, it all balances. It's still an error when you do your report each month. So you still want to go back and you want to change that date back so that these are in the same month. So just be careful when you're making your entries that both sides of your entry has the same date, and both sides of your entries that they are balanced at the end before you get out. So we can correct that by either just deleting. In this case, I can just delete the entry, zero it out, and now I'll be back in balance when I run my report. The other error that a lot of people get that they ignore is when you reconcile. And if you're in the system and you're reconciling, and I'm just going to put in an amount here, they'll get this box that pops up here that says my calculated beginning balance does not match my beginning balance that I have on my statement. Your GL should match what your statement says is in there. If it does not, this is a red flag here that there's something wrong. And in my case, I, again, purposely changed my beginning statement balance to make it do this. But if you've got an entry in there that's incorrect, or has been reconciled when it shouldn't have been, or was not reconciled when it should have been, according to your statement, it's going to throw this off. So these should always match, and this box should not pop up when you go to do your reconciliation. And if it does, then that means we have to do some research and find out why. So I just kind of wanted to bring this to your attention because I get a lot of calls in the next few months about this being off, because at the end of the year, like I said, you're going to want this to balance. And So if you kind of keep this in mind, and as soon as a message like this pops up, you research it and you find it, it's a lot easier than trying to go back, several months at the end of the year to try to find it. So if you are getting these and you need any further help with that, sometimes it's like finding a needle in a haystack. You've got to go back day by day to try to find where did this entry happen and what happened to it and how did it get in there. But that's what we're here for, and we can help you with too. So just be aware these are things that can happen, and they're not to be ignored. You do need to take care of these. And just don't go ahead and say okay and keep going and reconciling, because you're going to continue to keep carrying that forward. Are there any questions?
None yet. Don't see any hands, don't see any questions. So if they find the error but they don't know how to fix it, or if they can't find it, then they can call you and you can help them fix it? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that why you get more love letters than I do?
Yes, in this case I purposely changed it, so I'm going to just change this back. But yes, this is what I basically specialize in, is getting your GL back in balance. So if you have trouble with that, definitely give me a call, because you're going to want this to be fixed. So.
Nobody cares when their documents generate right in Practice Master, but you get love letters because you can make their GL balance. Okay. Well, we're going to close up General Ledger then, and we're going to turn our attention to Practice Master. We're going to talk about document management. Now, one of the really huge things about any practice management, and of course we talk mostly about Practice Master, is what we call case centricity. Case centricity means that you can take things that normally aren't maybe as easy to identify with a case and make them case-centric. Email is a great example. You can tag emails to cases in Practice Master, and then you simply call up a certain case in Practice Master and click the email tab, and you'll see all the emails just for that case. You don't have to go to all the different inboxes throughout the office to find them. They're all right here, no matter who sent them, no matter who received them. As long as they've been tagged to that case, they are in Practice Master and associated with that case and able to be brought up by that case. The same applies to documents. Now, people have been adding case centricity to documents for years. Ever since 1981, IBM introduced the first personal computer, the first problem people had to solve was how to get to their documents quickly for a specific case. The problem is, unless they're doing it in their practice management system, it's sometimes cumbersome, especially now that we have attorneys and paralegals spending a lot of time in documents, whereas back in the 80s, we still had the typing pool approach where a certain group of staff would create documents and then attorneys would merely review printed copies. Now we've got attorneys and paralegals editing documents, and getting to them is essential. We also have, depending of course on the type of law that's being practiced and the type of cases, we can have huge up to show it or not, but if you've got it set up to show it, then you can see this Docs tab. In a nutshell, it's the ability to take documents and as they're produced or as they come into the office, because not all the documents relate to a case originate in your office, in your firm, as they're produced or as they come in, they can be stored and tagged to that particular case. Now, there are two ways to do document management in Practice Master. The first actually is to use Practice Master. The second is to use something called World Docs. Now, World Docs is an add-on package. It does cost extra money, as much as $400 a seat actually, and it is a full-featured, very capable document management package. Practice Master has some document management capabilities built into it for many of our clients, that's more than enough, and that's what they use for their document management. For some of our clients, that is not enough, and they need certain features that you get from a more document management oriented product. Now, with Practice Master, you simply click on the Docs tab. And I don't have World Docs enabled, but if I did, and I will in a minute, when I clicked on a case, you would see over here in the Quick Clicks tab the ability to display the World Docs documents for that particular case. If you are using World Docs, you turn off this Docs tab because you're not using that, you're using World Docs instead. Now, before I start, I see that Perpetua has her hand up, so I'm going to unmute her. Well, actually, I can't. I'm going to send her audio pin. Perpetua, I do not see, I can't unmute you because you have not put your pin in, but I did just send it to you. If you want to put it in, we can unmute you. Or if you want to type your question in the question section, we can also answer it that way. So Mary Jo, keep an eye out for that. And if you see that question come in, let me know.
I'm going to go ahead and put her hand down so
okay.
I know that we've...
Okay, now the big difference between using Practice Master's document management capabilities and something like World Docs, and we of course recommend World Docs because it ties in so tightly with Practice Master, the big difference between the two is what we call the difference between a closed and an open system. What does that mean? In Practice Master, we have button bars that will install into Word, Excel, and Adobe. So if you're using Word for your word processor and you're using Adobe to store your scanned images, and maybe you're doing some work in Excel, that's great. Let me show you what I mean by that. I can go over here and click on, I'm in Word 2007, so I have the ribbons. If you've never seen ribbons before, this is what they are. So I need to click on this ribbon here called Add-ins, and among all my other Practice Master related buttons is one called PM Save. So if I type test document and hit the PM Save button, what it will do is prompt me to save the document first just the way I normally do, and I don't have them, but you'd probably have subfolders for your clients, and then perhaps under that subfolders for different matters, and perhaps under that subfolders for pleadings and correspondence and the like. You would save your document exactly the way you normally do. I'm just going to call this Paul 04. And when I save it, it then says who's it for, and I'm going to say Michael Larson, and it gives me a screen to fill out. What is it? It's a letter regarding medicals. I save it, and I have tagged that document to Practice Master. I'm going to go back here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that if I hit the Save button here, or if I hit File Save As, or any other way of saving this document, it's not going to go into Practice Master. The only way that it's going to go into Practice Master is if I hit this PM Save button. That's what we call an open-ended document management system. It is something that I, as a user, need to initiate myself by hitting the correct button to get the document into the document management, into the practice management system. I'm going to skip out a word for a second. I'm going to actually unload Practice Master, and I'm going to load something called World Docs, which is our document management system in this example. And I'm going to go back into Practice Master once it's loaded, and I'm going to go back into Word. And once I do, I think it'll become obvious what a closed document management system is. Okay, it's loaded. I'm going to go back into Practice Master. I'm going to go back into Word. While I'm waiting for Word to come up, I'm going to get rid of that and go right into the client here in Practice Master. And I'm going to show you that we now have a display World Docs documents over here. And I'm going to go into Word and I'm going to type another test document. I'm going to call this test document number 2 because I'm very imaginative when it comes to my test documents. And now, with World Docs loaded, it doesn't matter whether I hit this button or File Save As or I hit Control-S because I'm old and I know what the keyboard shortcuts are, and I come from an era before we had mice on our computers. Any of those things that I do will cause World Docs to pop up and say, I'll put this away for you. Just tell me a little bit about it. Tell me the client and the matter, and I'll put it away. So I'm going to say this is a letter, re-medicals, and that it is for Mr. Larson, and that it is for his Larson versus Belcor workers' comp case, and that it's a letter, and that I, Paul, am the author. And once I save that, it also gives me the chance to put it in a library. I don't have a correspondence library, so I'm going to put it in pleadings. And I'm done. Now, that's closed document management. And by closed, I mean I can't save this document without World Docs popping up and saying, I'll put it away for you, tell me a little bit about it. And it doesn't matter if I'm in Word or Excel or Adobe, which are the only things that we have the button bars for in Practice Master. And it doesn't matter if I'm in WordPerfect or any of thousands of programs. I don't believe there are many, if any, programs that World Docs cannot, or we cannot set up World Docs to hook into. And so if compliance is an issue, and I think it is in most firms, then World Docs is usually the way people turn, because you don't have to worry about people putting something up in the right place. You don't have to worry about them saving it to the document management system because it's a given. They can't get around it. If you're in Adobe and you go to save it after scanning it, World Docs pops up. If you're in any program, maybe you have a JPEG editor that you use to edit pictures of accident scenes because you do insurance defense or PI. No matter what the program is, if it's set up to hook, which is come up and force you to put the document away in the right place, then it will do that, and there's no way around it. And the thing about that is, and this is, I believe, the most important distinction. I'll tell you a couple others in a minute, because obviously if you're going to pay $400 a seat for World Docs, there better be some other advantages, and there are many. But the biggest difference, the biggest deciding factor for most people is this closed and open. And the reason it's so important is if an attorney is going to rely on a paperless, quote-unquote, paperless office, when they go to look at the list of documents, they need to be assured that those documents represent everything that there is for that particular case. And if it's possible that somebody on the staff has saved a document in a place other than the document library for that particular case, then that attorney loses all confidence in the system, loses all confidence in its ability to store the documents that he needs or she needs for managing cases, and the whole thing kind of falls apart. I see that, Mary Jo, that Lori has a question. Mm-hmm.
Yes, she wants to know if Practice Master can work with WordPerfect to save documents.
It can't. I kind of just answered that after she asked her question. It can. Let me explain. You don't have a button bar like I showed, like I demonstrated just now with the PM Save button in WordPerfect. World Docs will work with anything. Practice Master, from an automatic standpoint, will only work with Word, Excel, and Adobe. Now,
and
you
Internet
can
Explorer as well.
Yes, that's right.
You can
Thank you,
save documents from Internet Explorer.
Exactly. You can save web pages and save versions of web pages from Internet Explorer. Thank you. Now, you can save a document in WordPerfect and then go into Practice Master and call up the record and go over to the Docs tab and create manually a new record and go down to this field and click this button and navigate through all the different file structures that you have to finally get to the right document and save it that way, but it takes a long time. You're talking about a minute or two per document that you're going to save. There's no automatic way. I think we heard rumors of version 16 perhaps containing button bars for WordPerfect. So Lori, Mary Jo, if you'll make a note and email me that note, I'll check on that for you, Lori, and let you know. I think I remember that from the forum that STI has every year. A couple other differences between World Docs. Oh, I'm sorry, real quickly. Let me get out of this fake document record. Let me go over here back to the list and just show you that once you highlight a case, just like you can click on the Docs tab if you're storing documents in Practice Master, you can click on this Display World Docs Documents tab over here, and it will show you all the documents for that particular case in a World Docs screen. Okay, so you do have this direct link between Practice Master and the ability to see your documents in World Docs. And the other way that World Docs integrates with Practice Master is that if you add a matter or add a case or a client in Practice Master or in tabs 3, of course, them being the same, sharing the same database, then it will instantly be accessible for profiling documents, for storing documents in World Docs. So you have those two levels of integration. Now, some of the other things that are important differences between a Practice Master approach to document management and a World Docs approach: file stamping, automatic file stamping. You've seen them. Maybe you use them now. Maybe you use them now by having macros at the bottom in your document that will put the document name and path within the footer of the document, usually in very small print. World Docs has the ability to automatically do that. The problem many people have with creating macros to do this is if then an attorney, we'll blame the attorneys, if an attorney pulls up that document and uses it as a source document for another, creates another one, stores it in a different manner, and forgets to update that footer because it's a manual thing, then the document footer is now pointing to the wrong place. World Docs has the ability to manage those automatically and make sure they're always updated. There are enhanced search capabilities. With World Docs, you can search a number of different factors. Full text searching, you can search across drives. You can even search documents that you don't have access to. People can have things stored in their private files and still allow you to search and find a file, even though you may have to then go to them and ask them for it. There's enhanced security capabilities within World Docs, the ability to lock up certain cases, to lock up certain files, to give certain people read-only access or only certain people access to documents at all, for either by the case or by the document. There's the ability to archive in World Docs to a separate drive or a separate server or a separate location. So when a case is closed, you can automatically archive and yet still maintain those links to the documents. You just don't have access to the full documents. There's the ability with World Docs to set up the web version so that people can get the documents from outside the office, either clients that need to get the documents based on their user login and their ability to see certain cases or certain types of documents, or for people from the firm to be able to get in from outside using the web interface. And World Docs handles email archiving a little bit differently than Practice Master does. If you take an email in Outlook and send it to Practice Master, it's not an email anymore once it gets into Practice Master. If we pull up an email from the Larson case, you'll see that it actually takes the body of the text and the subject and the to and the from and the date and time and all those variables and puts them into fields. So it's no longer an email. In World Docs, let's see if I can find, if you pull up an email or archive an email or store an email to a case, it's still an email. So if you actually open that email, well, this email happens to be tied to Practice Master using the old-fashioned way. Hold on one second. We'll try this one. And if it doesn't work, I'll just explain it. If you open an email and it's not stored in Practice Master, which these two emails happen to be, then it will actually open up the email as if it was an email in Outlook, and you can send it. And here we go. Here's that second email came up. You can still send it. You can still forward it. You can still reply to it. So unlike an email that's taken out of Outlook and put into Practice Master, if you store it to World Docs, it still operates as an email. It still acts as an email object. Okay, there were a couple other questions, Mary Jo. You want to?
Yeah, you've got a question about for incoming documents after scanning, how are they inputted into the correct case file? I'm assuming that's in Practice Master, or I'm not sure if that's Practice Master or World Docs question.
Well,
but
I'll answer that question for both. In World Docs, when you're in Adobe, just like when you're in Word or when you're in WordPerfect or in any other program, when you go to save that file, it will automatically pop up World Docs. So if you scan incoming documents, they end up in Adobe, or if they don't, you should set them up so that they do, and then they automatically can get tagged simply by saving them. So if I open up a PDF, well, I don't even need to open one. If I'm in Adobe and I go to save something, it will automatically pop up World Docs if that's what I'm using. If instead I'm using Practice Master, we still have the PM Save button in Adobe. So same as what I showed you in Word. If you're in World Docs, you save and World Docs pops up and says, where do I put it? Who's it for? If you're in Practice Master and you're in Adobe, you simply hit the PM Save button. And Mary Jo and I just worked with a firm that had nice Fujitsu ScanSnap scanners. They were scanning, but they weren't scanning to Adobe, and so it was very cumbersome for them to get their documents into Practice Master. And we just spent about half an hour, changed a few things around, and now they put a button in, hit the go or the scan button on the scanner. It scans it, it opens up Adobe, they hit one more button, which is this PM Save button, and it's there. It puts it in the right case, well, assuming that they put it in the right case, gives it them a place to describe it, and it's into Practice Master.
Okay, a follow-up to that question, in Adobe the document is no longer searchable. They want to know if it's searchable after that.
In Word, in World Docs and
Adobe.
Practice Master, as long as you go in here and tell it to, using Edit and then OCR, where is it? Document, OCR text recognition, and then recognize text using OCR. Once you scan it into Adobe, if you go this extra step of going into Document, OCR text recognition, and then recognize text using OCR, Adobe will turn it into a searchable document. Practice Master and World Docs will both then be able to search the text of the document. Any more questions?
Perpetua had lost her volume, so I'll send her a message that you will send her
good.
a copy of the...
Perfect. And this came up the other day. Somebody emailed me because they had signed up and wasn't going to be able to attend and wished they could, and also wanted me to cancel their registration because they wanted to give up their seat for somebody else, which I'm very grateful for. However, we have the capability to have up to 999 people attending, and as many people can sign up as want to. It's just the first 999 can get into the session. We haven't broken that barrier yet, and I don't think we will very soon. So what I want to stress is that if you sign up for a webinar or for a virtual user group meeting, a Watercooler meeting, and don't attend, you will still get the recorded version emailed to you. So if you know you're not going to be there, but you still want to listen to it, just sign up for it. It doesn't matter that you're not going to attend. We don't really care. Well, we do. We'd like to see you here. But that means that you will then get the recorded version. The only difference will be in the pleasant email that I send you. Instead of saying, I was glad to see you, I will say, I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to attend. So whether you attend or not, we will always send you a link to the recorded version of the webinar or recorded version of the Watercooler meeting, as long as you've at least signed up. Any other questions?
That's it.
Any lawyer jokes? No lawyer jokes? I heard one the other day, but I can't remember it now. Oh, well, I'll study that and bring it to you next month at our October virtual user group meeting, where we're going to talk, among other things, about what to do at the end of the month. People sometimes skip these things, so we're going to talk about things to do month end so that your system stays indexed and error-free and all those good things. So please join us then, but until then, everybody have a good afternoon, and thanks. Bye-bye.